I'm a little upset that I didn't get to take a vacation last year, although I did spend a little time in a place called Kryn. Welcome to 2024 Maverick Gamers. So traditionally I'm a dungeon master who likes to create his own content. At an early age when I started playing Dungeons & Dragons, I adopted the module of the month kind of concept where I would go down to the local store and buy a module, read it, and try and play it for my players. But soon afterwards I started to realize that there was a lot of constraints placed on me and also a lot of creative restrictions, I felt anyway at the time. I didn't really understand the idea of being able to take said material and expand on it for your own purposes or your own group. I was kind of beholden to what was written. So it wasn't too far after that where I started to decide that maybe I am better off sort of carving my own path and creating my own content, and I stopped buying modules now. I did buy campaign box sets and stuff to frame my adventures in, but I didn't buy the modules per se. So imagine my excitement when they announced a new Dragonlance expansion for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I don't know if I should call it an expansion per se, but at least a new Dungeons & Dragons sourcebook catering to the Dragonlance Campaign setting, or so I thought. You see, I didn't quite get into Dragonlance when I was a young gamer, actually. I had a friend who played Dragonlance, and the books were just kind of beyond me, and I thought there was a lot of established lore that would constrain me. And also, it took place in a different world than the average D&D setting, so I didn't quite get into it. I didn't actually take an interest in Dragonlance until much later in life, which is quite sad. But imagine my excitement when they announced that, hey, 5th edition is going to get a Dragonlance supplement. So I thought it'd be a great time to jump in and actually see if I could make a go of it, so to speak. As when I got the book and realized that it actually wasn't a campaign set in the purest form, or at least not like the campaign sets that I had when I was a young gamer. The Forgotten Realms box set, Karatur box set, things like that. That's what I was expecting in a hardbound book. What I got instead was an actual module. I got a hardbound module. A complete adventure arc from level 1 to level 10 with very specific key beats, story elements. Pretty much everything was laid out in front of you to play as a very linear, sort of on-rails adventure for players who want to experience Dragonlance. Well, that just wasn't going to cut it for me. Shadow of the Dragon Queen is a 224-page sourcebook for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition that's going to walk your players from level 1 to level 10 and let them experience a taste of the Dragonlance campaign setting. Now, why I say a taste is that this is actually just basically an adventure. This doesn't really expand on the greater world of Kryn or the setting of the Dragonlance campaign in any meaningful way. I mean, there are different story elements that zigzag around the novels, and introduce some key characters from the books. But as far as laying out any information to take your own characters through ongoing adventures in the world of Kryn, the book's really lacking. Now, one of the things that I noticed right off the bat is, for a very prestigious campaign setting, whoever wrote this book didn't really lean into the characterization of some of the key NPCs and key figures in the game. Now, in my mind, there was a lot of missed opportunities in this book. When you actually purchase this book, go into it thinking more along the lines of a framework of how you're going to run this campaign. Don't look at it as the de facto information source. I had to do a lot of searching through wiki articles and just in general going deep into the lore of the Dragonlance setting to sort of pull out that flavor that the book and the game deserved. So full disclosure, I'm currently in the middle of running this particular campaign path. Now, I have one group that's about 3/4 of the way through it, and I have a new group that's starting in January. Now, I've spent a lot of time sort of dissecting how to improve the written word in the book, and one of the key elements that I found was that the NPC characters and the supporting cast don't get a lot of fleshing out in the actual book. In some cases, they don't even get stat blocks. Now, some of these characters only have a few moments to shine in the story, and some of them are reoccurring. But I think one of the biggest things you can do that's going to help you actually flesh out this game and actually give it a little bit more oomph in the storytelling department is to take some time and look at some of these supporting characters, these NPCs. Specifically, if you look at the character of Darrett. Darrett is the squire of Becklin. Becklin is a Salamnic knight who overlooks the village of Vogler in the book. Becklin is a very cool character, and again, doesn't get the honor of having a stat block in the book. Now, I fleshed Becklin out to give her a little bit more of a 3-dimension. As far as Darrett goes, Darrett is a major character in the game, and he pops up time and time again to support the players and to act as sort of a sounding board for ideas. Darrett needs a lot more fleshing out than the book gave him. In fact, I think the book really only talks about him for a few moments at the very beginning of the Vogler chapter. I would emphasize that taking characters like this and giving them a little bit more flavor and definition throughout the course of your story is really going to help give the players a sense that they're living in this world. Shadow of the Dragon Queen has a lot of really deep emotional story beats. Now, the book as written doesn't really give you an outline on how to actually convey that to the players. Again, as written, if you were to just go through this book, it would become very stale and the players wouldn't really connect with any of the NPCs in any kind of a real meaningful way. What I did is I looked at each encounter with an NPC or an important supporting cast character and looked at how I could infuse that encounter or that meeting with a little bit more emotional connection. So, for example, in the Vogler village portion of the book, there is a couple foils to the players known as the Bakaris, Elder Bakaris and Younger Bakaris. Now, the book basically just gives them sort of a quick little gloss over as the fact that they are kind of a rude and arrogant family. Now, in my setting, I decided to lay out the Young Bakaris arc a little bit differently. I had the players meet Young Bakaris in several different scenes leading up to Ispin's celebration of life. Now, one of the first things I did was establish Young Bakaris as a real arrogant jerk, so to speak. I had him encounter villagers where the players actually saw his interactions with other people and had a chance to naturally and organically start to hate this character. Now, as written in the book, the real first encounter they have is at Ispin's celebration of life, and it's written that Bakaris is just kind of spouting insulting words and disrespecting Ispin. And that's about it, really. At the end of the day, the two of them are just kind of written in as sort of an afterthought. Now, in my campaign, I had Bakaris actually become a real integral part to the campaign itself. Bakaris actually found himself ongoingly in trouble that the players would have to grapple with whether or not to help him or not. In one particular scene in the Battle of High Hill, young Bakaris actually gets trapped by one of the mercenaries that are attacking the villagers, and actually the players themselves have to decide on whether or not they want to save Bakaris, making this sort of a real pivotal decision in their arc. Things like this can really infuse the story with a lot more emotional connection. Taking it a step further, look at other ways to do this. The villagers themselves are actually living, breathing kind of NPCs, but the book doesn't really give you much time to sort of let the players get to know the villagers and the village as a whole. Take the mayor, for example. Mayor Raven is a key standout character, but again is given nothing more than just a passing paragraph to describe who she is. Pick and choose different characters from Vogler, or just from any of the other settings in the game, and give them a little bit more emotional weight. Have them interact with the players, have them do things that the players are actually going to remember later on in the adventure when it becomes important that they have to make decisions in regards to them. Cudgel, Becklin, Darrett, the Bakaris, Mayor Raven, even insert a few of your own that isn't written in the book, just to give your characters a sense that, hey, they're in the Dragonlance world and that their decisions have consequences. While Shadow of the Dragon Queen may be an incomplete product, it doesn't stop you from making it your own. Look to the books and look to some of the source material that's come before it as inspiration on how to really grow and add a lot of narrative flair to your adventure path. While the source book only takes players from levels 1 to 10, there's a lot of stuff that can fill in the blanks of those 10 levels rather than just following the actual book beat by beat. Look for other ways to add story elements to the adventure path that goes outside the boundaries of the book and perhaps adds a little bit more flavor to your game. Hope you're all having fun playing Dungeons & Dragons, and we'll talk to you soon. Before you go, I need your help. I'm trying to grow the exposure of what we do here at Maverick Games. My goal is to actually bring information to parents and students around the world in hopes that they can see gaming as a path forward for learning, academics, and even support of neurodivergency. Please subscribe, make sure you click on those notifications, and I hope that you'll find content here that will be helpful for you and maybe others. Thank you very much, and thanks for tuning in.